Jake Morrison opened his eyes at exactly 6 in the morning, just like he had every day for the past 7 years. The alarm clock on his nightstand showed 6 o'clock in bright red numbers. He reached over and turned it off before it could beep. His body had learned to wake up on its own after all this time alone. He sat up in his narrow bed and looked around his small room. The walls were metal and painted white, and there was a small window that showed the dark surface of the moon outside. No trees, no grass, no blue sky. Just gray rocks and black space with stars that never twinkled. Jake had gotten used to it. The mining station Alpha 7 was his home now. It sat in a deep crater on the far side of the moon, where Earth could never see it. The station was not very big. It had living areas underground to protect from radiation. Above ground, there were solar panels, mining equipment, and communication dishes. Jake took care of all of it by himself. He got dressed in his work clothes and walked to the kitchen. The floors made soft sounds under his boots. The station was always quiet except for the hum of machines. Jake made coffee from powder and water. It did not taste very good, but it helped him wake up. He ate breakfast from a package that said scrambled eggs, but tasted like cardboard. While he ate, Jake looked at his tablet. It showed him reports from all the station systems. Air recycling was working fine. Water pumps were good. Nuclear reactor was stable. Mining equipment needed some attention. Jake nodded to himself. It was going to be a normal day after breakfast. Jake put on his work jacket and walked through the corridors to the main control room. The walls were covered with screens and buttons and lights. Some lights were green, which meant everything was okay. A few lights were yellow, which meant he needed to check on things. No red lights today, which was good. Red lights meant big problems. Jake sat in his chair and turned on the computer. Numbers and charts filled the screen. The mining robots outside had worked all night, digging up rare metals from the moon rocks. The metals were worth a lot of money on Earth. That was why the station was here. That was why Jake was here. He pressed some buttons and watched the robots on cameras. They looked like giant insects with drill arms and collection tanks. They moved slowly across the crater floor, finding the best rocks to break apart. Jake had fixed these robots so many times he knew every bolt and wire in them. "Good morning, Jake," said a voice from the speakers. It was Betty, the station computer. She sounded like a woman, but Jake had turned off most of her talking programs. Years ago, he liked the quiet. "Morning, Betty. Show me the night reports," Jake said. "Robot 3 has a worn drill bit. Robot 7 needs hydraulic fluid." "The main processor is running at 87% efficiency," Betty reported. Jake nodded. He wrote notes on his tablet about what to fix today. Then he walked to the equipment room to get his tools. The room was full of spare parts and machines. Jake had organized everything perfectly. He could find any part he needed in the dark. He grabbed his tool bag and headed outside through the airlock. The moon had no air, so Jake wore a spacesuit. It was heavy and made him move slowly, but he was used to it. Outside, the sun was shining brightly on the crater walls. There was no atmosphere to make the light soft, so everything was either bright white or completely black shadows. Jake walked to Robot 3 first. The machine was as tall as a house and covered in moon dust. Jake opened a panel and looked inside. The drill bit was indeed worn down. He used his tools to remove it and put in a new one. The work took 30 minutes. Robot 3 tested its new drill and gave Jake a thumbs up with one of its arms. Next, Jake went to Robot 7. This one needed hydraulic fluid for its lifting arms. Jake connected a hose from his supply tank to the robot's reservoir. The green fluid flowed through the clear hose until the tank was full. Robot 7 flexed its arms and went back to work. Jake spent the morning checking on all the mining equipment. He replaced filters, tightened bolts, and cleaned sensors. The work was familiar and calming. He had done these same tasks thousands of times. His hands knew exactly what to do. At noon, Jake went back inside for lunch. He heated up a meal package labeled beef stew and ate it while reading technical manuals. He was always learning new ways to keep the station running better. There was no one else to help him, so he had to know everything. After lunch, Jake worked on the main mineral processor. This machine took the rocks that the robots collected and separated out the valuable metals. It was a complex system with crushers, magnets, chemical baths, and centrifuges. Jake had modified it over the years to work more efficiently. The processor had been making strange noises for 2 days. Jake opened it up and found the problem. One of the bearings was wearing out. He replaced it with a new one from his spare parts. The machine started running smoothly again. Much better, Jake said to himself. He often talked to himself while working. It helped him think through problems. As the afternoon went on, Jake checked the solar panels and cleaned dust off the important ones. He tested the communication equipment and sent his daily report to Earth. The message would take several seconds to reach Earth because of the distance. The reply would come back in a few hours. Jake's report was always the same. All systems normal, production on schedule. No problems to report. He had not had a real problem in months. The station ran like a clock because Jake took such good care of it. In the evening, Jake made dinner and sat by the window in his room. He looked out at the stars and tried to remember what Earth looked like. He had been born there, had worked there, had friends there. But that felt like a long time ago. 7 years ago, Jake had been part of a mining team on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. There had been an accident. The ice had broken, and his friends had fallen into the dark ocean below. Jake had tried to save them, but he could not reach them in time. He still dreamed about it, sometimes daft. After the accident, Jake had requested the loneliest job he could find. The mining station, Alpha 7, was perfect. No crew, no visitors, no one to let down. Just him and the machines and the quiet. Jake finished his dinner and got ready for bed. He checked all the systems one more time. Everything was green lights. The robots were working through the night. The station would keep running while he slept. Before turning off his light, Jake looked at a photo beside his bed. It showed him and his old crew on Europa, all smiling and wearing their work uniforms. They had been good friends and good workers. Jake missed them, but he had learned to live with the sadness. Another day done, Jake said to the quiet room. Tomorrow would be just like today. Check the systems, fix what was broken, keep the station running. It was a simple life, but it was his life. He had made peace with being alone. Jake closed his eyes and went to sleep. Outside his window, the mining robots continued their work. Under the stars, the station hummed quietly in the crater. Everything was normal and peaceful. Jake did not know that his quiet life was about to change completely. He did not know that 10 desperate visitors were flying through space toward his hidden station. He did not know that tomorrow would be unlike any day in his 7 years of solitude. For now, Jake Morrison slept peacefully, the last human to have such a quiet night for a very long time. Jake woke up to red lights flashing in his room. The alarm was beeping loudly. He jumped out of bed and grabbed his tablet. The screen showed warnings from the long-range sensors. Something big was coming toward his station. "Betty, what is it?" Jake asked as he ran to the control room. 10 large objects approaching from deep space, Betty said. They are not in any Earth database. They appear to be organic in nature. Jake sat down at his main console and looked at the sensor data. The objects were huge, each one the size of a large spaceship, but they did not look like any ships he had ever seen. They seemed to be alive somehow, moving through space without engines or fuel. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. "They will reach the station in approximately 4 hours," Betty replied. Jake's heart was beating fast. In 7 years, no one had come to his station except supply ships every 3 months. The next supply ship was not due for 6 weeks. These objects were something completely different. Jake spent the next hour watching the sensors. The objects were slowing down as they got closer. They were not coming to attack. They seemed to be approaching carefully, like they did not want to cause trouble. When the objects were 1 hour away, Jake's communication system started receiving signals. The signals were not in any human language, but they were clearly trying to communicate. Jake turned on the universal translator that was built into the station's systems. The translator worked for several minutes, trying to understand the signals. Finally, words appeared on Jake's screen. "Peace, help, please." Jake stared at the words. Whatever these things were, they were asking for help. He had never seen anything like this before. He was scared but also curious. "This is Mining Station Alpha 7, Jake said into his microphone. "I am Jake Morrison. What do you want?" The reply came quickly through the translator. "We seek shelter. We are refugees." "We mean no harm." Jake looked at his screens again. The objects were now close enough for his cameras to see them clearly. What he saw made him sit back in his chair with his mouth open. They were dragons. Real dragons, like from old Earth stories, but these were flying through space. They had huge wings that seemed to catch starlight. Their scales shimmered with colors that changed as they moved. Their eyes glowed like small suns. The largest dragon was speaking to him. Its voice came through the translator as calm and tired. "I am Korath, leader of the last Parathians. We have been running for many years. We need a place to rest and hide." Jake could not believe what he was hearing. Dragons were real, and they were talking to him. "Running from what?" he asked. "The Devourers," Korath said. "They hunt us across the galaxy. They feed on the life force of thinking beings. We are the last 10 of our kind." Jake felt sad when he heard this. These mighty creatures were refugees, just like people who had to leave their homes during wars on Earth. They were asking him for help. "Why did you come to my station?" Jake asked. "We detected your mining operations," Korath explained. "We sense that you are alone but not angry. We hoped you might understand what it means to need shelter." Jake looked at his screens showing the dragons floating in space near his station. They were beautiful but also looked very tired. Their scales did not shine as brightly as they probably should. Some of them had what looked like old wounds. "We know this is much to ask," said another dragon, smaller than Korath. "I am Zara. We can offer knowledge and work in exchange for shelter. We are good builders and know much about technology." Jake thought about this. His station was not built for visitors, especially visitors the size of spaceships. But these dragons were not just asking for food and a place to sleep. They were asking for their lives. "How long have you been running?" Jake asked. 30 Earth years, Korath said. "We used to be thousands, now we are 10. The Devourers never stop hunting us." Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. "You can stay," he said. "I will help you." The dragons were quiet for a moment. Then Korath spoke, and Jake could hear emotion in his voice even through the translator. "You would do this for strangers? Everyone deserves a safe place to rest." Jake said, "But I have to warn you, my station is small. I do not know how we can make it work." "We will find a way," Zara said. "We are good at making things work." Jake suited up and went outside to meet the dragons. When he walked out of the airlock, he felt very small. The dragons were floating above the crater, each one bigger than his entire station, but they did not seem scary. They seemed grateful. Korath landed first. His feet touched the ground gently and he folded his wings. Up close, Jake could see that the dragon's scales were like metal, but alive. They moved slightly. With each breath, "Thank you, Jake Morrison," Korath said. "You have given us hope." "Just Jake is fine," Jake said. "Let me show you what we have to work with." Jake took the dragons on a tour of his station. They could not fit inside the buildings, but they looked at everything with great interest. Zara asked many questions about how the mining equipment worked. Another dragon named Dracos was fascinated by the power systems. "This is well made," said a dragon named Vera. "Humans build things to last." "I've had a lot of practice keeping it running," Jake said. The dragons talked among themselves in their own language. Jake's translator picked up some words. "Shelter. Safe. Build. Hide." Korath turned to Jake. "We have an idea. We can hollow out larger spaces in the crater walls. Our fire can melt and shape rock. We can make ourselves hidden shelters that connect to your station." Jake was amazed. "You can do that?" "We are old," Korath said. "We have learned to adapt to many environments. Give us 3 days and we can make this place comfortable for all of us." Jake looked around his crater. It had been his quiet home for 7 years. Soon it would be shared with 10 dragons. The idea should have scared him, but instead he felt excited. For the first time in years he would not be alone. There is one more thing, Karth said quietly. The Devourers will eventually find us. They always do. When that happens, you will be in danger too. Jake thought about this. He could change his mind. He could tell the dragons to leave and go back to his quiet life. But when he looked at these tired, ancient beings who had been running for 30 years, he could not do it. Then we will deal with that when it happens, Jake said. For now, let us make you comfortable. The dragons looked at each other, and Jake saw something he had not seen before in their glowing eyes. They looked hopeful. We will not forget this kindness, Korath said. From this day forward, you are dragon friend Jake. Jake did not know what that meant, but it sounded important. He smiled and shook Korath's massive claw with his small human hand. Welcome to Mining Station Alpha 7, Jake said. Let us get to work. As the dragons began to plan their new shelters, Jake realized his life of solitude was over. He was no longer the only thinking being in his crater. He was part of something bigger now. Something that might be dangerous but was definitely not boring. The quiet mechanic had become the protector of the last dragons in the galaxy. Jake Morrison had no idea what he had gotten himself into, but for the first time in 7 years he was looking forward to tomorrow. The work began at sunrise. Jake watched from his control room as the dragons started to reshape his crater. Korath breathed fire that was hotter than anything Jake had ever seen. The flames were not orange like normal fire. They were white and blue and made the rock glow like liquid metal. That is incredible, Jake said to himself as he watched Korath melt a section of the crater wall. The rock became soft like clay, and the dragon shaped it with his claws into a smooth tunnel. Zara was working nearby. She was the youngest dragon, only about 100 years old, which was very young for a dragon. She was smaller than the others, but very quick and curious. Jake suited up and went outside to talk to her. How are you doing that? Jake asked, pointing to where Zara was making the melted rock hard again. We breathe different kinds of fire, Zara explained. Korath's fire melts things. My fire cools them and makes them strong. Watch. Zara breathed on the tunnel wall that Korath had just shaped. Her fire was silver and made a sound like wind chimes. Where it touched the rock, the surface became smooth and hard like glass. That is amazing, Jake said. You are natural engineers. We have been building for thousands of years, Zara said. But we have never worked with human technology before. Will you show me how your machines work? Jake was happy to teach her. He brought Zara to his workshop and showed her his tools. She was fascinated by everything. She picked up a wrench with one of her smaller claws and examined it carefully. This is very clever, she said. Simple but effective. May I try using it? Jake watched as Zara used the wrench to tighten a bolt. Her claws were surprisingly gentle and precise. She could do delicate work even though she was so large. You are good at this, Jake said. Would you like to help me with the daily maintenance? I would be honored, Zara replied. I want to learn everything about how humans build things. While Jake and Zara worked together, the other dragons continued expanding the shelter. Dracos could create electric fields with his body. He connected his power to Jake's electrical systems and made them work better than ever before. Your power output has increased by 40%, Betty reported. The dragon electricity is very pure and stable. Vera was creating crystal formations inside the new tunnels. The crystals glowed with soft light and seemed to carry sound and information. Jake realized they were like a living computer network. These crystals can store data and send messages, Vera explained. They will help us communicate throughout the expanded station. Jake was amazed by what the dragons could do. Each one had special abilities that seemed like magic but were actually very advanced technology. They understood science in ways that humans were just beginning to learn. How long has your species been traveling in space? Jake asked Korath during a break. More than 50,000 of your years, Korath replied. We have seen many worlds and many peoples. Humans are young, but very promising. What do you mean by promising? Jake asked. You adapt quickly? You solve problems in new ways. You help strangers even when it might be dangerous for you, Korath said. These are good qualities for a space-traveling species. Jake felt proud to hear this. He had always thought humans were not very special compared to other possible aliens. But the dragons seemed to think differently. Over the next few days, Jake and the dragons worked together to transform the mining station. They dug new chambers deep into the crater walls. The dragon's fire made the digging easy, and their crystals provided light and communication. Jake learned that each dragon had a specialty. Korath was the leader and could shape any kind of metal. Dracos managed power and energy systems. Vera created living crystal networks. Zara was the engineer who could fix and improve almost anything. The other dragons had their own skills, too. Theron could create force fields for protection. Lyra could purify water and air. Nyx could bend light to make things invisible. Orion was the navigator who knew the stars. Kai was the healer who could repair damage to both living beings and machines. Sage was the eldest, who remembered the history of many worlds. We work well together, Jake said to Zara as they finished installing a new air recycling system. I have never had such good helpers. We are not just helpers, Zara said. We are partners. You gave us something we had almost forgotten. Hope for the future. Jake understood what she meant. The dragons had been running and hiding for so long that they had stopped planning for anything except survival. Now they were building something new, something that could last. On the fourth day, Jake's long-range sensors detected something that made his heart race. 3 objects were approaching from deep space. They were moving fast and heading straight for the station. Betty, analyze those objects, Jake said. Unknown design. Betty reported. They appear to be predatory in nature. Estimated arrival time. 2 days. Jake ran to find Korath. The dragon leader was in the main chamber, working with Vera to install crystal communication nodes. The sensors show 3 ships coming, Jake said. Are those the Devourers? Korath's eyes blazed brighter. Yes, they have found us again. We must prepare to leave. Wait, Jake said. Maybe we do not have to run this time. All the dragons stopped their work and looked at Jake. They seemed surprised by his words. You do not understand, Korath said. The Devourers are very dangerous. They have ships that can destroy planets. They have weapons that can drain life from any living thing. We cannot fight them. Maybe you could not fight them before, Jake said. But now you have human technology to work with. And I have dragon abilities to help me. We might be able to do something new. Zara's eyes lit up with excitement. Jake is right. We have been building hybrid systems for days. What if we could make hybrid weapons too? It is too dangerous, Korath said. If we fail, you will die with us. Jake walked over to a window that looked out at the crater. The mining robots were still working, collecting valuable metals. The solar panels were still generating power. The station was still doing its job, but now it was also home to 10 dragons. I ran away once before, Jake said quietly. When my friends died on Europa, I came here to hide. I thought being alone would keep me safe, but it just made me sad and scared. He turned back to the dragons. You gave me friends again. You gave me a reason to build something instead of just maintaining it. I will not let the Devourers take that away. The dragons looked at each other. Jake could see them having a silent conversation through their crystal network. Finally, Korath spoke. If we do this, it will be the first time in 30 years that we have stood and fought instead of running. Are you certain you want to risk everything? Jake thought about his quiet life before the dragons came. He thought about 7 years of talking to himself and eating meals alone. He thought about the excitement of the past few days, working with beings who understood technology in ways he had never imagined. I am certain, Jake said. Let us make a plan. Korath nodded slowly. Very well, dragon friend Jake. We will make our stand here. But if we are going to fight the Devourers, we need to turn your mining station into a fortress. Jake smiled. I know exactly how to do that. Let me show you what human military engineering can do when it works with dragon abilities. The dragons gathered around Jake as he began to explain his ideas. For the first time in decades, they were not planning to run. They were planning to win. Jake had never worked so hard in his life. For 2 days, he and the dragons built weapons and defenses around the crater. They had very little time before the Devourers arrived. "Zara, help me connect this targeting system to Korath's fire chamber," Jake said as he worked under one of the new weapon platforms. His hands were covered in grease and his back hurt from crawling through tight spaces. "The connections look good," Zara said, checking Jake's work with her dragon eyes that could see energy flows. "The targeting computer will tell Korath exactly where to aim his fire." Jake crawled out and looked at what they had built. The weapon platform looked like a giant telescope, but instead of looking at stars, it focused dragon fire into a deadly beam. They had built 6 of these platforms around the crater rim. "This is crazy," Jake said, wiping sweat from his face. "We are turning a mining station into a battleship." "A very clever battleship," said Dracos, who was connecting power cables too. "The weapon systems. The Devourers will not expect this. They think we are just frightened refugees hiding in a human mining station." Jake walked to the main control room where Korath was studying the sensor displays. The 3 Devourer ships were getting closer. They would arrive in 6 hours. "How do they look?" Jake asked. "Dangerous," Korath replied. "Each ship is twice the size of your station. They have weapons that can crack moons. Their hulls are made of living metal that can repair itself." "But can they handle mining lasers powered by dragonfire?" Jake asked. Korath's eyes glowed brighter. "We are about to find out." The biggest weapon Jake had built was in the center of the crater. It was the main mining laser, but he had modified it with dragon technology. Vera's crystals focused the beam. Dracos' electricity powered it. Korath's fire would make it hot enough to cut through anything. "I have never seen anything like this," said Sage, the oldest dragon. "In all my years, I have never seen technology that combines organic and mechanical systems so perfectly." "Humans are good at making things work together," Jake said. "We have to be. We are not as strong as dragons, so we use tools to make up for it." "And dragons are not as inventive as humans," Zara added. "Together we can do things neither of us could do alone." Jake checked his watch. 4 hours until the Devourers arrived. He walked around the crater, testing each weapon system. The dragons were in position at their firing stations. Everyone knew their job. "Remember," Jake said into his communicator, "we want to disable their ships, not destroy them completely. If we can capture one, we might learn how to track down other Devourers." "You are thinking like a soldier," Korath said approvingly. "I had forgotten that humans are also warriors." Jake had been thinking about this fight for 2 days. The dragons were right that the Devourers were dangerous. But they had one weakness. They were used to easy victories. They hunted refugees who could only run and hide. They had never faced prey that fought back with advanced weapons. "All stations, report readiness," Jake said. "Weapon Platform 1 ready," said Zara. "Weapon Platform 2 ready," said Dracos. "Weapon Platform 3 ready," said Vera. One by one, all the dragons reported that their weapons were ready. The main mining laser was charged and waiting. The force field generators were online. The stealth systems were active, making the station hard to detect until it was too late. "Betty, how long until they arrive?" Jake asked. 1 hour 37 minutes, Betty replied. Jake sat in his command chair and watched the sensors. The Devourer ships were slowing down as they approached the moon. They were being careful, which was good. It meant they did not expect a fight. "They are scanning the crater," Korath reported. "They can sense our life energy, but the stealth systems are hiding our weapons." "Perfect," Jake said. "Let them get close." The 3 Devourer ships were ugly things. They looked like giant insects made of black metal. They had long arms with claws for grabbing prey. Their hulls were covered in spikes and weapon ports. They moved in a way that reminded Jake of hungry predators. "They are hailing us," Betty sighed. "Put them through," Jake said. He wanted to hear what they had to say. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. "Surrender the dragons. You will not be harmed if you comply." Jake picked up his microphone. "This is Jake Morrison, commander of Mining Station Alpha 7. The dragons are under my protection. Leave now or face the consequences." There was silence. For a moment. Then the Devourer voice spoke again, and this time it sounded amused. "You are one small human on a mining station. We are 3 warships with enough firepower to destroy your moon. Surrender now." "Counteroffer," Jake said. "You are 3 ugly ships that have been bullying refugees for 30 years. I am one human, with 10 dragon friends and a really big laser. Last chance to leave peacefully." The Devourer ships responded by opening their weapon ports. Energy beams lanced out toward the station, but the beams hit Theron's force fields and bounced harmlessly into space. "Now," Jake said calmly. 6 dragon-powered weapons fired at once. Beams of concentrated fire and energy struck the Devourer ships. The attacks were coordinated perfectly, hitting weak points that Jake had identified on the sensor scans. The first Devourer ship staggered as its engines were damaged. The second ship's weapons were knocked out. The third ship tried to retreat, but Nyx bent light around it, making it confused about which direction was which. "They are trying to drain our life energy," Korath warned. "I can feel them reaching for us." "Kai, deploy the life shields," Jake ordered. Kai created a field of healing energy around the station. When the Devourers tried to drain life from the defenders, they got healing energy instead. The feedback confused their systems and made their attacks weaker. "Main laser ready," Jake announced. "Target the lead ship's power core," the mining laser fired. Enhanced by dragon technology, the beam was brighter than the sun. It cut through the Devourer ship's hull like a knife through paper. The ship's power core was exposed, sparking with damaged energy. "Surrender now," Jake said into his communicator. "Your lead ship is disabled. Your other ships are damaged. You cannot win this fight." The Devourers tried one more attack. All 3 ships focused their remaining weapons on the station, but Jake had planned for this. The force fields held, and the dragon-powered weapons fired back even harder. The second Devourer ship lost its main engines. The third ship's hull was cracked open. The lead ship was drifting powerless in space. "This is impossible," came the mechanical voice. "We are the Devourers. We have hunted across the galaxy for millennia. How can refugees and one human defeat?" "US? Because you forgot something important," Jake said. "Refugees are not always helpless. Sometimes they find friends. Sometimes they find a place to make a stand. Sometimes they find a human mechanic who is really tired of bullies." The Devourers tried to retreat, but their ships were too damaged. One by one, they sent surrender signals. "We yield," the lead ship transmitted. "We request mercy." Jake looked at Korath. The dragon leader's eyes were blazing with victory and something else. Hope. "You hunted us for 30 years, Korath said into the communicator. "You destroyed our people and our worlds. Why should we show mercy?" "Because that is what makes us different from them," Jake said quietly. "We are not monsters." Korath nodded. "Slowly. Very well. You will be taken prisoner. Your ships will be searched. Your people will be questioned. If you cooperate, you will be treated fairly." As the dragons moved to secure the defeated Devourer ships, Jake sat back in his command chair. His hands were shaking from exhaustion and adrenaline. They had done it. They had won. "Jake," Zara said, landing beside the control room, "that was incredible. We actually beat them." "We did," Jake said, still not quite believing it. For the first time in 30 years, the Devourers lost a battle. "This changes everything," Korath said. "Other refugees will hear about this. They will know that the Devourers can be defeated." Jake looked out at the crater where dragons and humans had worked together to build something amazing. His quiet mining station had become the site of the most important battle in decades. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now we find out what the Devourers know," Korath replied. "And we prepare to help other refugees who are still running and hiding," Jake smiled. His days of solitude were definitely over, but he was not sad about that anymore. He had found something better than quiet. He had found purpose. 3 months after the battle, Jake's mining station looked completely different. The crater that had once held only mining equipment now buzzed with activity. Dragons flew in and out, carrying supplies and messages. New buildings had been carved into the rock walls. The lonely mining station had become a busy center of cooperation. Jake stood in his new office, which was much larger than his old control room. Through the window, he could see Zara teaching a group of young humans how to work with dragon technology. The humans had arrived 2 weeks ago, the first official team sent by Earth to learn about their new dragon allies. The morning reports. "Jake," said Betty, whose voice systems had been upgraded with dragon crystal technology. She sounded more natural now, almost like a real person. "Thanks, Betty. How are the prisoners doing?" Jake asked. "The Devourers remain cooperative. They have provided information about 17 refugee groups still hiding in various star systems. Korath and his team are planning rescue missions." Jake smiled. The captured Devourers had been full of useful information once they realized the dragons would not torture or kill them. It turned out that many of the Devourers were not evil by choice. They were slaves to a mind control system that had been destroyed when their ships were defeated. "Jake, are you ready for the ceremony?" asked Zara, landing on the platform outside his office. She had grown even more skilled at working with human technology over the past months. "As ready as I can be," Jake replied. "Today was special." Earth's government was finally ready to announce the existence of dragons to the public. Jake would be the one to introduce them to the world. Jake walked through the station corridors toward the main communications center. The walls were now lined with dragon crystals that glowed softly and carried messages instantly throughout the facility. Human computers worked alongside dragon organic systems, creating technology that was better than either species could make alone. In the communications center, Jake found representatives from Earth's government waiting for him. Admiral Sarah Davis had flown out from Earth specifically for this announcement. She was a stern woman who had been skeptical about dragons at first, but seeing their technology had changed her mind quickly. "Mr. Morrison," Admiral Davis said, "are you certain the dragons are ready for this level of contact with Earth?" "They have been ready for months," Jake replied. "It is Earth that needed time to prepare." Korath entered the room, having to duck slightly to fit through the doorway that had been enlarged for dragons. The great dragon leader wore a ceremonial collar made of rare metals that gleamed in the light. "Admiral Davis," Korath said formally, "we are honored to finally meet Earth's people properly." "The honor is ours," Admiral Davis replied, though Jake could tell she was still amazed to be talking to a real dragon. "Your technology has already helped us solve energy problems that have puzzled our scientists for decades. And you're human. Engineering has shown us new ways to use our abilities," Korath said. "Together we can accomplish much." Jake took his place at the communications console. In a few minutes he would be talking to news reporters, government leaders, and ordinary people all over Earth. They would learn that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that their first alien contact was with refugees who had become friends. "Are you nervous?" Zara asked quietly. "Very," Jake admitted. 3 months ago I was just a lonely mechanic. Now I'm supposed to speak for both humans and dragons." "You are the perfect choice," Korath said. "You were the first to show kindness to strangers. You were the first to believe we could work. Together, you are the bridge between our peoples." The communication system activated. Jake could see dozens of video screens showing news studios, government buildings, and gathering places around Earth. Millions of people were waiting to hear what he had to say. "People of Earth," Jake began, "my name is Jake Morrison. I am a mechanic at Mining Station Alpha 7 on the far side of the moon. 3 months ago, 10 refugees arrived at my station asking for help. Today I want to introduce you to humanity's first alien friends." Jake stepped aside and gestured to Korath. The dragon moved into view of the cameras. Jake heard gasps and exclamations from the Earth viewers. Many people had suspected that aliens existed, but seeing a real dragon was still shocking. Greetings, people of Earth, Korath said in perfect English. I am Korath of the Parathians. We are what you call dragons, though we prefer to think of ourselves as your cousins among the stars. Jake explained how the dragons had arrived as refugees, how they had worked together to defend the station, and how their cooperation had led to amazing advances in technology. He showed videos of dragons and humans working side by side, building things that neither species could create alone. The dragons have shared their knowledge freely, Jake said. They have helped us develop clean energy systems, better space, travel, and medical techniques that can heal diseases we thought were incurable. In return, we have given them something they had lost: hope for the future. Admiral Davis stepped forward. Earth's government is proud to announce a formal alliance with the Parathian people. Together, we will explore the galaxy and help other refugees who are still hiding from the Devourers. The questions from Earth came rapidly. People wanted to know if dragons were dangerous, if more aliens would come, if Earth was safe. Jake and Korath answered each question patiently and honestly. Dragons are no more dangerous than humans, Jake explained. They can be fierce when protecting their friends, but they are fundamentally peaceful people who value knowledge and cooperation. We have lived among the stars for 50,000 years, Korath added. We have met many species. Humans are young but show great promise. You adapt quickly, solve problems creatively, and show kindness to strangers. These are the qualities of a great spacefaring civilization. After the announcement, Jake walked through the station with a feeling of satisfaction. In just a few hours, everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone. The dragons had a new home and new allies. The Devourers were no longer the unstoppable force they had once been. Jake, called Dracos from the power station, the new reactor is ready for testing. The combination of human engineering and dragon energy is working perfectly. Jake replied, What is our power output now? 300% above original capacity, Dracos said proudly. And it is completely clean. No waste, no pollution. Jake found Vera in the Crystal Laboratory, working with Dr. Lisa Park, one of the human scientists who had come to study dragon technology. They were growing communication crystals that could send messages across space instantly. This will revolutionize space exploration, Dr. Park said excitedly. Ships will be able to stay in contact with Earth no matter how far they travel. It is our gift to humanity, Vera said. A small repayment for the sanctuary you have given us. In the engineering workshop, Jake found his favorite site. Zara was teaching a group of human engineers how to build hybrid tools that combine dragon abilities with human technology. The humans were fascinated, asking endless questions about how dragon fire could be controlled so precisely. You are natural teachers, Jake told Zara. We have learned much from humans too, Zara replied. Your people think differently than we do. You see solutions we would never consider. It makes us better engineers. That evening, Jake stood on the observation deck that looked out over the crater. The mining robots still worked, but now they were joined by dragon-human construction teams building new facilities. Ships from Earth arrived daily, bringing supplies and more people eager to work with dragons. Korath joined Jake on the deck. Do you ever miss the quiet? The dragon asked. Jake thought about this. Sometimes, he said honestly. But I have learned that quiet and lonely are different things. I can find peaceful moments even when surrounded by friends. You have given us more than shelter, Korath said. You have given us a future. The young dragons are learning human technology. The old dragons are sharing ancient knowledge. We are building something new together. What do you think will happen next? Jake asked. We will find the other refugees and bring them to safety, Korath said. We will explore new worlds together. We will build cities among the stars where humans and dragons work side by side. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders waiting to be discovered. Jake looked up at the stars. Before the dragons came, space had seemed cold and empty. Now it seemed full of possibilities. Somewhere out there were other refugees waiting for rescue. Somewhere were new worlds to explore and new friends to meet. Never thought I would leave this station, Jake said. But now I want to see what else is out there. You will, Korath promised. Dragon friend Jake, you will see wonders beyond imagination, and you will help bring peace to parts of the galaxy that have known only fear. Jake smiled and looked around his transformed station. The lonely mechanic was gone forever. In his place stood someone new, a bridge between species, a friend to dragons, and a guardian of refugees throughout the galaxy. His greatest adventure was just beginning.